Everyone. I'm Sarah, and we're going to get started in just a minute here. I want to make sure everybody can get in. I'm not sure exactly how many people we're expecting, but I see that we still have some hopping in. If you want to, you can go ahead and log into your GoFormative account, which I understand that Nick was setting those up last night. So they should be up and running. If you have any questions as we go through this, or if you can't get into your account, just go ahead and throw it in the chat. And I do have periodic times I'll stop and address that chat box. So if you just log into goformative.com, and you all are Google School, correct? So you can just log in with Google. I think so, yeah. All right. In the interest of time, I am going to go ahead and get started. It looks like we're up to 19, so we'll see what we get. So let me go ahead and start here. Just a little bit about myself. I am a former educator. I taught for 14 years, K to 8, mom of 2 little girls who I think are pretty awesome, and I live in Northern Virginia. So I am enjoying I'm somewhat enjoying, I should say, not thoroughly enjoying, being back teaching again this year, as I am working with my little ones, but it is challenging for us all. Very, very much appreciate everything you all are doing. So what we're going to cover today, we want to make sure you know how to set up your classes in GoFormative. We want to make sure that you know how to build a formative, add questions to it, as well as assign it. And we want to look at how to act on the results of the formative. So how can we view the results, and what can you do with it? Like, how can you view the data in a variety of ways? Things to know, I am recording today's session so that I can send it to your principal so that he can then distribute it to you all. So if you get a little bit behind, you'll have a chance to go back and look again. And the training will last about an hour. And I will keep the chat box open. So if you asked a question, go ahead and throw it in there, and I'll get to it when I have a couple of scheduled breaks in the middle. So getting started today, I was saying that if you'd like to, you're welcome to log into your GoFormative account. They were set up yesterday, I believe, or the night before, if you have a new account. So you're just going to go to goformative.com and click login, and then you'll be able to sign in with Google, I believe. And you do not have to follow along in the account. It's kind of up to you and how, Is anybody else having trouble hearing me? I just want to make sure. I see someone saying that they're having a hard time hearing me. Hopefully that's not the case all the way around. Let me just make sure my microphone's correct. Yeah. Let me know if there's others having trouble. Otherwise, Jenny, I would recommend hopping out and hopping back in and see if the sound gets any better. I am going to go through a variety of things today, and so it's kind of up to you how you learn best. If you learn best by doing, you'll want to be logged in. If you learn best by watching, then I would just skip this step completely right now. So we're going to start with a short 2-minute video. This is the 5-minute video. Let me get the 2-minute video. And it's going to show you a little bit about Go Formative and just what you're going to be able to do with it.
Welcome to Formative. Formative makes building formative assessments and assignments easy. When building a formative, you can choose from Formative's interactive question types and content items. Already have content that you like? Not a problem. Simply upload any PDF or doc and click to add questions on top. If you don't have your own content, simply grab a formative from our public library of thousands of pre-made formatives. Once you've added questions to your formative, you can add an answer key for auto-grading, you can allow for partial credit or randomize the order of questions, and you can tag any question to a standard, which allows you to track student progress over time. Once you've assigned a formative to students, their responses will appear in real time on your dashboard, color-coded according to auto-grading. This allows you to intervene when it's needed most, immediately. For any questions that do not have auto-grading, or if you'd like to adjust the grading, you can grade multiple responses at the same time, and also send feedback to multiple students at once. You can send resources in this feedback, such as videos, images, and embedded websites. Students can also send you messages if they need help. Is collaboration a goal for your school or team? If so, Formative makes it easy to share. You can add a colleague to live edit your formatives together. You also have a private library for your school or team where you can publish any formative and even publish as a common assessment. Amplify your teaching with Formative.
All right, so just a little bit about what you're going to be seeing today. So when you first log into Formative, you're going to be looking at your Formative dashboard. And if you are new to Formative, you're going to just have, I believe, one item up here, which is the Formative Resources folder. If you do open that folder, you'll see quite a few resources we put together for you, including examples of how to embed particular sites such as Edpuzzle, Padlet, Nearpod, all of those types of sites. If you're a math person, you'll probably want to check out the Desmos embedding because you can embed calculators as well as pretty much any of the tools that they have on their site. So it is very useful and it will tell you exactly how to do it step by step for all of these different sites. Otherwise, your dashboard probably looks pretty empty. We're going to go ahead and hop right on over to classes so we can get you some classes. So at the top, you'll see Formatives, Classes, Tracker, and Library. Only administrators will have that 5th tab, and we're going to go to the Classes tab. My understanding is that you use both Google Classroom and Clever, and we want to stick to Google Classroom. If you have a Google Classroom, I would stick to that because that's going to allow you to assign and post to Classroom as well as pass grades back to Classroom. So you would want to click Google Classroom Sync, choose your account, and then choose your classes. I don't have students in my little made-up Google Classroom, but you can go ahead and see when you do it. You'll see all of your students listed as well as any co-teachers that you have. Co-teachers in Go Formative will import from Google Classroom if you want them to. And co-teachers will have access to everything that deals with that class. So they will be able to see any formatives that have been assigned to the class as well as any data. Co-teachers can also assign to the class. So if you have support teachers or if you have special education teachers, ELL teachers, or anyone who might want to assign to any of your students, this is a great option because then both teachers can view the data. So once you have your classes in, if you want to make any updates or if you have a new student or a student who leaves, you'll want to click next to the class, and yours will look like this with the little G. And you'll get a menu that pops up at the bottom. And this is where you'll resync your class. So it will not auto resync for you. If you get a new student or a student leaves, you will need to do this and resync your class, or else you won't be able to assign to that student. If you've been using GoFormative for a while and you already have classes, you can archive them here. Archiving just hides them from your dash. It doesn't delete any data. It does the same for the students, so it cleans up the student account as well. All right, so moving right along, we're going to head over to the Formatives tab. So if you did import classes, you're going to see them across the top here. These are all of your classes, and like I mentioned, this is your folders and your formatives. Once you start giving formatives, you're going to start seeing all of these icons pop up here. You'll see that 100 students have taken this, it's still open, and some scores have been returned. If you just kind of hover over it, it will tell you what it means, so you don't need to worry about memorizing those. If you are on this screen and you decide, I want to assign this formative to this class, just like a big grid, click on it, and everything will pop up right there from your dash. You can assign it, and I'm going to go through all these settings with you. I just want you to see that that shortcut is available. I see a couple questions about classes. So if students are added later, we have to re-import. Yes, Justin, you have to click next to the class and just hit the sync. And if we import later, will that delete any data that may have been there before? No, no data is ever hard deleted. If you archive a class, it will be hidden, not even soft deleted, just hidden, and you can bring it back. But no, we will not delete any data if you resync a class. So across the top here, you'll see you can choose to view only the assigned or unassigned formatives. And you also can sort based on these criteria here. Regardless of how you sort though, your folders will always come up at the top, followed by your individual formatives. If you want to make a folder, you'll click right here to the plus folder icon. And I highly recommend making folders for your units, or at least for each class, or not each class that you want to assign to, but like if you teach multiple classes, Algebra 1, grade 8 math, etc., it just makes it a lot easier to find your work and keep it organized. And it can also be great for sharing. So I just made this folder called Thompson. If I click next to it, at the bottom, you'll get this pop-up again. All of our pop-ups are on the bottom. All of the menus are always on the bottom. So just click next to, whether it be a class or a folder or a formative, and then look at the bottom. And I can share this folder. So if I have other teachers, let's say my colleague Nicole is also teaching this content, I'm going to give her edit and assign privileges so that she can assign any formatives I put in here, and she can also add to the folder. So let's get into the actual formatives. When I click the plus new formative, you'll get this rather blank looking screen. The first thing you want to do is give it a title. Make sure you give it a title, or else it will show up on your dashboard as untitled formative with a number after it. It will autosave for you, so you don't need to worry about hitting return or anything like that. But you do want to make sure that you give it that title, or else it's going to be very confusing to find it later. Up here in the top right are some of our options. You can view a student preview of the formative. You can even take it as a student, so you can see what it's like for them. You can use this triple dot menu to do any of these things right here. Join instructions you shouldn't need if you're going to post it to Google. You can set a formative type, which I do recommend doing if you want to be able to filter by that type later. So when you're in your teacher tracker looking at data and you're trying to see has the student mastered a certain content or a certain concept, you'll probably want to look more at the benchmarks than you want to look at, say, just classwork. So if you want to filter by a type, you'll want to go ahead and assign that type here. You can go back later and add in a type if you decide that you want to do that. It won't affect the formative. You can customize the header, so you can give it different colors, and you can upload images. You can also share here. So the first option is the same as what we saw with the folders. So I can add a collaborator. So say I add my colleague Zoe. I have two options with Zoe. I can give her assign only. So she'll be able to see this formative and she can assign it to her students, but she cannot edit it. I can give her edit and assign privileges, which will allow her to edit the formative. It's really an important distinction here that if you allow somebody to have edit and assign privileges, any edits that they make will show up in your formative. So if you do not want someone changing up what you're assigning to your students, then you want to stick to assign only, or you can give a copy. So I can share a copy by clicking here and sending this link to a colleague. They click on the link and then it's their own copy. They can edit it, they can assign it, it will not affect mine. So this is the one I see used more often, this and shared folders. But if you're truly building a formative together, the option you want is to add a collaborator. And then finally, you can publish to the library. You have a private library. So if I go down and I would fill in all this information and I go here to where it says who can access this formative, you're going to have two options. You're going to have a public one and you're going to have one that says your school name. Your school one is private. It is only for your educators at your school. The public library is what I like to refer to as a giant free teacher pay teachers. So if you're willing to share your work so that other educators can use it, you can publish it to the public library. Any changes they make to it will not affect yours. You're just giving a copy to anyone who would like to use it. Also in this triple dot menu, you'll find your grade pass back. So after you've given the formative and you are done, you've graded it, everything's good to go, you can click grade pass back and you can pass your grades back to Google. When you do that, it will ask you for your account and it will ask you to set a number of points that you want it to be worth. And then Formative will do the conversion. So if your formative is 30 points, let's say it's 30 questions, one each, but you only want it worth 4 points in Google, Formative will convert that into the appropriate number of points. And then finally over here, you can print. And when you click the print, you can either do a blank formative or you can do it with student responses. So when I click to the plus sign, this is where I find all of the content that I can add. So this could include 6 types of just kind of what I call like the naked content. Like it doesn't go with a question. So you could just enter an audio, like say you want to speak to your students, you can talk. You can embed different activities like the ones that I showed you in the Formative Resources folder, Flipgrid, Edpuzzle, all of those. You can add an image. So for some educators who are currently working virtually, they want to put an image of their notes. You can also use it to put in images of documents that you might want them to see. I have social studies teachers putting images of maps and Declaration of Independence and all that. You can add those in. Text block with directions. Also, if you have a site you want them to go to, but it cannot be embed, you can just put the link in a text block. Videos, we support Vimeo, YouTube, as well as videos from your Google Drive. And then finally, the whiteboard is a teacher feature. So the students cannot write on this whiteboard. The teacher, if you're teaching, especially if you're teaching synchronously, you can be drawing your notes or your examples and the students can watch it come up live. So everything is within a 1 second. It's actually less than 1 second refresh. So everything you write on the whiteboard will be seen to the student instantly. Then we have 12 premium question types. And you can also enhance a PDF, doc, or Google Doc, or search from existing questions. So if you don't want to rewrite all of your questions, you can just pull them in from existing ones. If you click on that, it takes you to the library, and you can pull from either the library or from your own formatives. So I'm going to start today with enhancing a PDF. Just going to choose a simple reading comprehension. the sake of demonstrating. If you upload more than one page, all of the pages will show up at once, but each page is separated, and you can later go through and delete any pages you don't want. You can add up to 25 pages at a time. My computer is always slow when I'm sharing my screen. I apologize. There we go. You should not have to refresh. It will pop up for you, unless if yours is like mine, it may take a little bit longer when you're sharing. And I'm just going to put a question right on top of here. I click, all of my question types pop up. I'm going to make this a multiple choice. Your students are in middle school. They're really old enough to be able to reference the PDF itself, so you don't really need to write the question out. However, if you have students who may have some learning difficulties, or the tracking might be a little bit difficult, you can type the question in here. Either way, you need to give it an answer choice. You have the options to randomize the order, which for this one I would not. And you can also ask them to show their work. So that gives them kind of like a blank whiteboard of their own, where they can draw, they can type, they can add a couple of shapes, and they can also upload images. If you plan to tag standards, you will need to add your standards in here by clicking in the Tag to Standards box, Add New Standards Set. So I will click there. You will find your standards. So let's say I'm in Alabama, teaching English Language Arts in grade 4, and I confirm and exit. Now those have been added to my standard set, so I can tag with a keyword. So for this one, I consider this identifying a detail to support the main idea. All of the standards I have in my standard sets that have that keyword will pop up, and I just choose the one I want. We do have a short video on tagging standards as well as an article. So if that is something you want to do, I recommend going to our help center and typing in standards, and that will give you a better, a more clear example. And then here, I might not want this one, but I want to do this one. So I'll go here and choose a multiple select. And this time I'm going to change the question to what colors are Mickey's shorts? And I want to put in my answer choices. You can add as many answer choices as you want by just continuing to click in the boxes. So I can add green and so on. I want to make sure that I put the answer key in. I can allow partial credit. I can randomize the order. And again, I could show my work, but not really appropriate for this one. I type in my keyword and tag the standard. Tagging standards is not required, but it will give you some data if you're interested in that. I could keep going down. I'm just going to do one more for now, which is an audio response, so you can see what that's like. When I click on audio response, I'm going to ask students, who is Mickey's girlfriend? Let's say my students might have a read aloud accommodation. Anywhere that you see this plus sign, you can add in audio. So anywhere you see that plus sign, you can add in audio. Who is Mickey's girlfriend? And now the student can see it and they can hear it. And if I go ahead and take a look up at the student preview, you'll be able to see that here's number 1. So the question is right here. There's really no reason to type the question out. Here's number 2. And then number 3, the student will click here to record the response. See a question. I just tried to upload from my Google Drive. The organization of how to find a doc you want does not follow my drive. It's previously selected, images, documents, drawings. Is there a way to just click through your drive folders like normal? I always just type what I'm looking for, Jenny, but let me take a look at that while you all take the formative in a few minutes and see if there's a different way to do it through Drive. So the next one is a resequence question type. And I show this one because it's a little bit tricky as far as how you get your answer key in there. So I can ask students to put the phases of the water cycle in order, beginning with precipitation. This is your answer key. So you do want to put the answer choices in order. So we would have precipitation, collection, evaporation, and condensation. You want to put them in order, but Formative will randomize them for you. You don't need to click randomize because we're going to do it. This is the only way we can grade it though. So if you want it to be auto-graded, you'll need to put them in order. I'm going to allow partial credit. And I'm not going to show my work, but I could ask them to show their work and draw a picture of the water cycle or upload an image. And again, I'm going to, I don't think I have that one in here. I was going to tie to standard. Does anyone use Edpuzzle here? Any head nods? Do you use Edpuzzle? I don't want to go through ones that you don't use. Okay, looks like that's not a big one for us. Well, if you wanted to do this, this is going to be a multiple choice question. I want to show the math keyboard for those of you who are math teachers. So it says solve, and really science teachers as well. Going to click on the plus sign and choose the math keyboard. You'll get this generic equation. You'll erase it, and then you have access to all of these symbols. So math teachers, science teachers, whoever needs them, you can access the variables. This is for fractions. This is for, you know, your exponents and so on. You have all of these symbols. I'm just going to type in a question and hit done. So now I can give my answers. I could just type the answer, or again, if I need this keyboard, so if you're doing y equals, or if you're doing something that's much more complicated than the response I'm giving, you can use that keyboard again for your responses. If you want the students to have access to the Math LaTeX keyboard, you must use a numeric or an essay question type. That's really important for those of you that are going to be doing kind of higher level math. If your students need access to that keyboard, you need to do either a numeric or essay question type. So let me put the answer choices. I'm going to randomize it, and I am going to ask students to show their work. Now, some of my students have trouble writing things straight, and I'm worried they're going to misalign that decimal. So let me go ahead and edit the background, and I'm going to add in some grid paper. So this is the show your work box. I can scribble, I can draw a line, I can choose my colors. I can also type, but for right now, I'm going to upload an image from my drive. And this is what Jenny was talking about. When I click here, it asks me what I'm looking for, and I just type a keyword. I don't know that I can get straight into my drive, like the way that you were mentioning, to see everything. I certainly will investigate, but I type a keyword and then pull it in. Students will be able to do this, zoom in and out. They can do it either with the mouse or with the hand and the plus and the minus magnifying glass, and it will come into the correct proportion for you when you grade it. So now students are going to solve this, and they have to show their work. Now, if I wanted to, I could add in some kind of an extra activity. So let's say that I would like to embed something. If you use Gizmos or any of those types of sites, GeoGebra, you can embed the activity right into GoFormative so the students are able to access it. Just because I wasn't sure what you used, I am going to pull this Edpuzzle. Edpuzzle is free, so at least some of it is. I know there's paid ones, but I like this one because I don't have to pay for this one. So I could take this, a 5th grade, dividing decimals. What you are looking for anytime you go to embed on any site is the share. So it is down here for this particular site, but they really do vary. You want to grab the iframe, and you're going to put it right into your formative. So now I've taken this really simple multiple choice question. I've enhanced it by asking students to show their work, and I'm giving them the opportunity to have a tutorial and solve some practice problems prior to doing the one that will count in their formative. For my social studies teachers, and this goes for anyone, but this is a map one that I'm going to show, is a show your work question type. For the show your work, I'm going to do this similarly to how I did with the grid. So I'll edit the background, go over to the image, and I'm going to pull in a blank map. Now my students can write right on top of this map. So when I choose the blue check, that's what saves it. You want to make sure that you do that. And if you have students who tell you, oh, I did the work, and you don't see it, chances are good they did not click this, or they might possibly not be saying the whole truth. So we're going to type the question here. I'm going to ask 3 things. I want students to circle Virginia. I want students to write your initials on the state where you live. And I want students to draw a star on the state whose capital today is Cheyenne. I feel that this is worth 3 points because it does ask them to do 3 things. You can change the point value right here by clicking where it says 1 or whatever point value you have set, changing it to 3. And then the last question I want to show you is the essay question type, because it seems, when I hear essay, I think, oh, students are going to write a really long essay. I don't want to grade that. But obviously some students need to do that if you're a language arts teacher. However, for this one allows, is actually more of a multimedia question type now. So I'm going to ask students to demonstrate your knowledge of wildfires. And I'm going to give them a point of reference by going over to YouTube and finding a wildfire video. All right, so on YouTube, if you plan to embed any YouTube videos, you want to find that share again. It's going to give you the link. I'm going to copy the link and put it in with a video. So the plus sign gives you the video. You add it in. And there it is. So they don't have to leave, which is especially helpful in YouTube when you know students will get distracted by other content. So I've put in the video, I've asked them to demonstrate their knowledge. And when I look at the student preview, you'll see that the students now have access to that plus sign that we've been seeing. So they can actually respond auditorily, they can embed, use emojis, images, latex math, or they can embed their own video. So if they want to make a video to present and upload it to YouTube as unpublished, they can give you the link and you'll be able to grade it right within GoFormative. All right, so that's all I was going to go over today as far as these question types and what you can do to add. If you have any questions about specific question types or any feature involved in building the formative, if you'll throw them in the chat, I'll address those. We're going to go on to the next section, which does involve you logging out of formative. So if you can go to the top right of your screen and click log out. Right, the top right where your picture or your initials are, and log out. And just wait a moment, I'm going to have you go back in as a student so that you can experience it from the student side. So I'm going to assign this formative. When you're ready to assign it, you'll choose your Google class. This is very important if you are using the Google class. You must post to Google if you want to do grade passback. So when I click that Google class, immediately at the bottom, you'll see assign and post to Google. Right? You do not want to assign only, you must assign and post to Google. Otherwise, you cannot do that grade passback. I don't have a Google class, so I'm going to assign to different classes today, but you'll want to make sure you assign and post to Google. After you choose your class, you'll want to adjust your settings. So this is where you can choose to restrict to individual students. So in my friend's class, maybe I want to assess everyone except for Chandler. Chandler's going to get a modified formative. So I'm going to choose everyone and then just take him off. I can schedule open and close times. So this is when do you want it to become available to students? And then also when do you want it to be like due? It's basically a due date. If you click on it, you can choose your date and time. It's not required to do that though. We also have a time limit feature, which is currently in beta mode. So please send us any feedback if you use this. But you can choose to allow just a certain amount of time, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, customize it. The thing about the timer is if a student goes in at say 1:45 and they start it and they work for 10 minutes and then they leave for 10 minutes, the time will keep ticking. Now they can go back in and do another 10 minutes after if you've given them 30 minutes, but the time will cut them off 30 minutes after they open the formative, regardless of whether they are in or not in the formative for the full time. After submission, what do you want to have happen? You can allow students to make edits to the formative. You can hide the formative, which means that they will not be able to see responses or correct answers, and it will go gray on their accounts. So they'll see that they took it, but they won't be able to see any information from it. You can keep it visible with no edits allowed, so students can reflect on their work, they can use it for notes, but they cannot edit it. You can return scores, and you can also return correct answers. The difference between submission and closing is that after a student submits, you could still have 15 more students taking the formative. So you want to make sure if you're returning scores or answers after the student submits, that you understand that they could potentially give those answers or scores to other students. So you would want to wait till closed or not show them at all. Displaying questions in random order is a great feature if you're doing only questions. If you plan to add in like that content I mentioned at the beginning that might not be attached to questions, it will also get randomized. So if you have a text block with directions, it's going to get randomized, so you would not want to use this feature. So I'm going to assign the formative. And what I'd like for all of you to do is to go to goformative.com/join, and I'm going to put this in the chat. goformative.com/join. And enter this code. I'm going to put that in the chat also. It will ask you for your name. You do not have to be yourself. You can be anyone that you want to be. Your names will be displayed on this screen, so it's up to you if you'd rather be someone a bit entertaining. goformative.com/join, and then enter this code. The purpose in this activity is for you to experience the formative as a student and see, is this easy for them? Is this difficult for them? Is this something that they can do? Would these question types, be good for me to assess the information? Also, I'm going to put the results up here so you can see it come in live, and you're going to see, I can actually watch you all take the formative. I'll see everything pop up. It'll be auto-graded on any auto-gradable questions within seconds. If you need that code again, it is in the chat, and it's also up here in the top right of my screen. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to go through that, 4 or 5 minutes. And please, if you get a chance, hop over here to the Zoom as well so that you can see those responses coming in, and you'll be able to get an idea of what you'll experience when your students are taking the formative. All right, I'm going to give everyone about 1 more minute. If you are done, you can probably see that we have quite a bit of data coming in now. All of the colors mean it's been auto graded, and the grays mean that those are ones I have to manually grade. So in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and keep going. If you are not done, you are welcome to leave it open if you would like to play around with it more, or you can go ahead and submit at the bottom, and it will tell you, you'll get a pop-up that says submit with unanswered questions. It'll ask you to make sure that you actually want to submit even though you have unanswered questions. So if you have students who tell you, well, I didn't know I had unanswered questions, it did pop up for them. If I look here, I can see right now that these students up here have already submitted, and I can tell because I have the green check mark. When I hover over the green check mark, it will give me a date and time stamp of when they submitted. I can also choose a student and go over here and look at his or her work, and I get a timestamp for each individual question. So you can get an idea of who your speed racers are and kind of how long they took. I see here that this person they've opened the formative, but they have not submitted it. So it's opened and I can see what time, but they didn't submit it. If I find that this person should have submitted, this was hours ago, they need to submit, you can always force submit for them by clicking on the triple dot. And right here, you can force the submission. You can also remove their responses if you want them to go back and take it again, or you can print their responses if you need it in paper form. I see a question about browser lockdown. We do not have a browser lockdown mode. You can use the external ones or the ones that you pay for, and the GoGuardians and all of those. But we found that the one that we used to have one, it just wasn't particularly effective. We're trying to work with Google right now to see if we can get in on what they're using, but that'll be another month or two before we have much update on that. So I want to go through and grade these as quickly as I can. So let me look at number 1. It's auto graded, it's done, it's perfect. I don't need to do much. But if you see this little icon up here, this is a table mode. So I can switch this over to table view, and I can see that everyone got the correct answer. If I wanted to send feedback to all of them, you just click on the line. All 11 students are selected, and at the bottom, I can send feedback to them all. So maybe I want to send them an emoji. I'm going to click that plus sign again, emojis, and a happy face. That will now go to all 11 students. It will show up in their accounts under the bell icon, which is where you will also find your feedback. When you or a student first logs in, the feedback will show up right away and you have to dismiss it. So if your students say, hey, I didn't see that you told me to do that again, they chose to dismiss it. So it will pop up automatically for them. For number 2, let me go back to the other mode. You can leave it in table mode if you want, or you can take a look this way. I'm going to choose all the people who chose red only. And we always have this debate about whether it's red or red and white. And for these students, I'm going to say, that's a lot of students. So I think I'm going to override this grade and just call it a bad question. So I'm going to move it up and give them credit. And then if I wanted to, I could send them all feedback. Number 3, there is no fast way to grade audio. However, if you are a world language teacher and you need them to speak in that other language to you, or if you have students who have accommodations that dictate that they be allowed to answer auditorily, you would want to use this question type. You just click on it.
Minnie Mouse.
And then give them the credit. You can also respond to them verbally. So I can go on here and say, great job. Or I could ask, whatever. It will go to them and send. Number 4, this one was auto graded for us. Now, I might feel as though some of these students need a little bit more review on the water cycle. So I'm going to choose all the students who did not get that correct, and I could send a tutorial video. I'm not going to do that, but it is an idea. You can click video and send a YouTube video about this, or maybe you want to send them a note that says, please review pages 7 to 10 in your textbook and then take it again. You can send that to all 5 students at the same time. Number 5, this was a show your work question type. Well, it was multiple choice with a show your work option. If I had wanted to, I could have gone to this question and watched everybody actually writing live. So I'm going to choose this one here. And I want to draw feedback on top of their work. So I will click draw feedback. And then I'm going to write on top of it. So while this is correct, it really doesn't, it didn't really show what they did. So I might fill it out for them. And then so on. Then I send it to them, I save it, and I can send that to them. So now the student can see my writing right on top of his or her work. I see a question about, are we able to post questions auditorily for students who can't read? You can add audio to any question type. The question is whether or not you want to do it for all of your students or just for certain students. So my recommendation is to not do it for all students because you want them to read. So in that case, what I would do is make a copy of the formative, and I can show you how to do that in a moment, and then add in the audio, and then only assign to those individuals who need those accommodations. The next one, number 6, this was the one where I asked you to do 3 things. And so what I would probably be inclined to do is go through and find everyone who got it right first. And it looks like 1. I love this question because half of us have not thought about Wyoming and where it's located since we were in 5th grade and learned it. And so this person's the only one who got all of it. But I could then go in here and I can fill in the parts, the ones that missed. So I can go in and write right on top of it. So this person chose Montana instead, but it is actually Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is here. Can write on top of it and send him or her that feedback. And then finally, number 7, I just wanted you to be able to see that. Yes, Justin, that is very true, isn't it? So this is for you to see. I mean, you can choose all of the students and give them all the same credit or the same everything, but this is so that you could see what that question allows. All right, so we've now made the formative, we've assigned it, and we've viewed the responses for it. So I'm gonna back out of here. And remember those tabs at the top. I wanna look at the tracker. So when I go to the tracker, you'll want to select which class's data you want to look at, and you can do more than one at a time. Like you can do them all or you can choose one. These are your filters up here. You can choose how you want it filtered, as well as the dates are really important. That's usually where teachers are like, I can't find my data, but it's there. It's defaulted to like the last 7 days. And then this is where that formative type came in. If you're looking for mastery, you might want to look at just your benchmarks. And you can also export the data from here. All right, so looking at this, I'm not sure where my data went. There we go. All right, so looking at this, I can see that these students have taken these formatives, and I can click on Chandler and this assignment, and I'll be able to see all of his work for that assignment right here in this screen. I can also do what I did at the other screen, the responsive screen, by printing or forcing submission. Now here it says standards and tags. If I'm tracking standards and tags, I can look with the same filters and I can see exactly what the students have done toward these standards and tags. So Joey has an 80 for 2G1. I can click on that standard and that score, and I'm going to see all of the questions Joey's answered toward that standard. So if you have special education teachers or ELL teachers who are trying to assess for your WIDA testing or for your IEP goals, this is a great option to keep track of how they're doing on the standards. The standards you add do not have to be your standards. They can be standards from a different grade level, ones that would better reflect what you're working on with your students. You have variety. There's no requirement that you have to use, if you teach 8th grade standards. I see a question, will text and assessments work with Google Translate Chrome extension? It should. I know it works with the read aloud. Chrome extension, the one that where you can like highlight it and the Google extension will read it aloud to you, as well as iOS if they happen to be on iPads. So yes, the Translate should work with that Chrome extension. The last tab that we haven't looked at yet is Library. When you go into the library, the only thing you really need to know is that you want to check out the filters. So when you filter, you'll have a public library and you'll have your school library. So if you're looking for things that only your teachers have written, you would go to yours, but otherwise most people stick to the public library. You can go into your grade level and your content area. I do not recommend searching by standard because there are just too many, and we're an international product, so I mean it's everywhere. So I'm going to choose this one. I think I'm going to like it. I click on it. I see what it looks like. You just click plus and go to it. And that's now my formative. It's a copy of the formative for me to use. I can assign it. I can edit it. I can do what I like with it. So I don't have to worry about affecting anyone else's work. And then finally, over here at the top right, we do have our Help Center. In the Help Center today, I went over not setting up your team, but the other 5 articles from the Getting Started checklist I went over today. You can contact formative support anytime. You do have a priority inbox as a partner school, so yours goes to the top of the tickets that come in. And you just send us a message. And within our Help Center, there are just a few articles I'd like to point out for you. In particular, we have articles called tips articles. If you are a math teacher, science, social studies, ELA, also we have world languages, differentiation, and we have one on accommodating students with special needs. Another one that's very popular right now is the tips for making assessments secure and successful. So how can we make these secure and successful even when we are at distance? So I'm going to send you the link to that in the chat. And then you can also search, we have an article for everything. So anything that you come up with that you're looking for, there's a good chance that it's going to be in the Help Center. And don't forget also that you have that Formative Resources folder on your dash if you're looking for how to embed particular sites. So this is the part where I open it up for you if you have any questions, if you want to stay on, if you want to talk about a particular content area, or if there's anything more that you think that you would like to see that might not apply to everyone, feel free to hang on. Otherwise, I wish you all a wonderful day, and I will stay on and see if anyone needs me.